Yo, what up guys, Slow-Mo Backslap here, slapping you with another video. Today, we're going to talk about Godfall and my impressions of Godfall after playing the game. I think I've been playing Godfall for at least about 10 to 12 hours so far. Not fully super deep in the game, but I know enough to know how I feel about it. Godfall is being developed by Counterplay Games. It's considered a looter slasher by Counterplay Games, its developer. Now, if you haven't heard of Counterplay Games before, that shouldn't really be any surprise. This is their very first big AAA game. Their only other title is an indie strategy game called Duelist. It only came out on PC. It was received fairly well for a indie strategy game, was critically reviewed well. We got like an 82 in Metacritic. But doing a strategy game is very, very different than a shooter. A shooter is a completely different kind of undertaking. And it seems they were poised to rise to that challenge by adding developers to their team who've previously worked on looter games before. But whether it's the budget or deadlines, it just seems to me Godfall doesn't seem to really get it done. So let's just get into it. So Godfall, again, as I said, is a looter, but unlike other looter shooters or looters in general, it's not a live game, so don't expect daily or weekly content updates to keep you interested. Gearbox, the publisher of Godfall, has stated that there will be an in-game and there will be further future expansions and post-campaign content to play. Now, this content we can expect in 2021, but to be clear, don't expect stuff that you would see from other looter shooters like battle passes or seasonal content. You're not going to get that kind of stuff with Godfall, which honestly for myself, that's kind of a relief, because trying to keep up with those things, typically when you see a looter do that kind of stuff, you are incentivized to do that content, and it's normally very time consuming, and if you don't, it's very difficult to get back into the game and then understand what the heck is going on. So it's good that Godfall's not doing that. Now, story-wise, I have to say, I found the story to be pretty decent so far. It at least follows a coherent narrative, which is much more than what you can expect from most games in this genre. Yes, I'm looking at you, Destiny, The Division, Anthem. Yeah, those games, stories are abysmal. This one, it ain't great. It's not like going to win best narrative of the year or anything, but it works. You understand what's happening. And so essentially, the game opens up with this cinematic about this king of this world. Everyone wears armor, I guess. I don't know why. But he was betrayed by a friend of arms and had his kingdom snatched away from him. And now he and some loyal warriors are fighting to get it all back. That's basically the gist of the entire story. It's not super deep, but I can dig it. I can dig it so far. Gameplay-wise, so the gameplay is enjoyable, but I can already tell that I will get bored of this really, really soon. Now, I see influences from games like Monster Hunter World, where your moves and style of combat changes determined by the weapon that you have equipped. Also, you can hunt enemies that are aligned with the main antagonist in the story or monsters in the world, which also can give you some pretty good rewards. But all that stuff is very much Monster Hunter World. It has other influences in the combat from games like God of War 2018 and your typical Souls-like games. Now, I say Souls-like because the game isn't as easy when it comes to killing mobs or enemies like you would expect from your typical looter. Most looters, the enemies are super dumb. They don't have the best AI, depending on, sometimes they have better AI, but mobs and enemies are usually easier to kill because your build is typically set to allow you to be pretty much a god in the game. In Godfall, you have some really good moves and skill sets, but you could very easily get killed by enemies. Very easily. Although if you do die, you are instantly respawn and can get right back into the action, and depending on the difficulty that you have the game set at, the enemies may not have regained all of their health, which I kind of find to be a little too easy. With that, I would prefer that if I died, they get all their health back and to make it more difficult, but the game's not exactly easy to begin with. Now, I did find that there are some challenges with combat that really have nothing to do with AI or game design, but more to do with the controls and input latency than, say, the actual enemies. Multiple times, I would find myself wondering why a move I tried didn't even attempt to be executed. And the parry system takes some getting used to. Essentially, you need to be parrying before you expect to in order to make sure you execute it correctly. Like you should be preparing a parry before you parry. It's kind of strange. Evading and instantly counterattacking a vulnerable enemy is a bit clunky. I would recommend trying to just parry your enemies and then counterattack them that way when their guard is down. That seems to work better for me. But Again, gameplay is enjoyable, the combat's enjoyable, it's just, there's something missing here. But you know, combat would typically go like this. You'll attack enemies and build up energy to fuel unique attacks to the kind of weapons that you're using. And in regards to your weapons, I find their usefulness to vary greatly. The Great Hammer is mad OP. I mean, just hammering the ground can be a massive AoE attack for enemies that are really far away from you. It can mop up a group of mob enemies and even bosses really easily. Whereas the pole arm is just dang near useless in my opinion. Dual blades, the long sword and great sword all fit well within the median of how I would tier these weapons, and typically you could just use whichever suits your taste. There also is this thing called Arkhan's Fury, which is unique to each kind of armor that you would use in combat, or each kind of warrior that you would use in combat. And so far I only have 3 of them, but they're all different for each, and they all bring a different element to combat. But I can't really speak to how versatile they are quite yet because I don't have very many of them. And also Godfall has a skill tree, and it's fairly robust. It's a bonus that you can respec it at any time you want. It's nowhere near as good as a skill tree as what you would get from, say, a Borderlands game, but it's decent. I haven't hit in-game or max level yet, so therefore I haven't had the opportunity to really dive deep in it and see what kind of builds I can create out of it. But the fact that I'm somewhat interested in doing that is kind of a feather in Counterplay and Gearbox's hat. But I do have to talk about the major issues here. Now, I wouldn't be keeping it real with you guys if I didn't do that. And so Godfall has to be the buggiest game I've played in 2020. I played a lot of games this year. This one by far gave me the most issues. I'm playing the game on PC, not PlayStation 5. Although I've heard the performance of PlayStation 5 isn't that great to begin with. Regardless, on PC, my game crashed 3 to 4 times before I could even finish the prologue mission. On PC, it has this issue with full screen. I think that got patched in the latest patch. I haven't had any issues playing the game in full screen mode since the most recent patch that came out earlier this week. It also has an issue with you alt tabbing or switching to a second monitor. It will crash 50% of the time when you do that. And in regards to performance, when it's not crashing, I've seen really problematic frame rate issues. At one point, my frames went from 97 frames per second to 5. Yes, 5 frames per second. I had the frame rate counter on. When it happened, I immediately looked at the frame rate counter like, what is going on? And it went from 97 to 5. I couldn't believe it. I've never seen anything like that before. Then it immediately went back up to like in the 40s somewhere, then back up to 90. But it was just so jarring and distracting. And I was in combat. So I really just ended up dying then because I just had no idea what was happening, and I was completely kind of thrown out of the moment. Now, there has been, as I said before, a patch that came out earlier this week, and I think this wasn't the first patch this game has had since launch, and I have noticed the performance has stabilized some. I still had one crash attempting to look at something on my second screen to change my focus, and then it again crashed on me, but that's only been one time since this update. But the bugginess of the game and its lack of stability has been the major reason why I haven't decided to live stream the game yet. I really wanted to live stream playing this game, but addressing something with the stream on YouTube or checking on my stream in OBS, I would need to do that on a second screen or alt tab to that. And then if the game crashes, that would be a really bad stream for people to watch. So streaming the game would just be a pointless endeavor. And so I'm not going to do it, at least not right now. The other issue, and this is a bit of a nitpick, but hey, that's how I feel. Regardless of which area in the map you do a mission, the environments all look the same. Now, it's a beautiful environment, but ultimately it gets old. And when you go to different realms, like I went from the Earth realm to the Water realm, they all look pretty much the same, regardless of realm. It's just a little small differences. Instead of having it being very different architecture in the Earth realm, the Water realm has like coral floors and coral walls all over the place, but it's still the design of the maps all are the same. It's really superficial changes in between the realms that show that they're different, and that's kind of a disappointment, not what you expect from a AAA game. But I don't think, and this is due to Gearbox as a publisher, because Gearbox has never really published AAA titles. They make AAA titles like Borderlands, but publishing them, no. All they published have been AA kind of games, and I feel like this game probably really didn't get a AAA budget, or there were time constraints that forced the developer to make some concessions in order to make sure that the game was out at launch. And those kind of concessions really kind of make it unfortunate that it doesn't have a true variety in environments that you would expect from a game that is a AAA. game. So in conclusion, and this isn't a review, so I'm not giving Godfall a review score, but I will tell you whether I recommend this game or not. So if you like looters, wait for a deep sale to play this one. I would not recommend buying the game right now. It's in a bad state right now. It could get better, but it could be frustrating playing it when your game's crashing a whole lot. Maybe the multitude of performance issues will be fixed and it will have more content and more environments to play in the future. If you enjoy a good melee combat game with some influences from God of War and Monster Hunter World and Souls games, then you may want to check it out also once it hits a sale. But everyone else, do yourself a favor, skip it. Godfall is a limited shooter. Now, though I'm going to finish the game, I'm not sure how invested I will be to play the in-game content or test out the build diversity once I'm done with that. And when it comes to a looter, if you don't have that, if gamers don't have the desire to play it beyond the campaign, it's kind of a fail. So you guys let me know what you think about Godfall. Is this a game you're interested in? Is my impressions of the game convinced you to give it a shot or pass on it? Let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you liked the video, the dislike button if you didn't. It's all good. And hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content like this in the future. Peace.